All righty, here we go on a Monday. It is the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Good to have you along and a lot to get to. Hope you all had a very good, safe, enjoyable weekend. Guardians certainly adding to your weekend if that's part of your thing, because they took 2 out of 3 in both these series, Boston and... What's the matter, Bo? You all right? Everything good? Everything good? All right. Boston and Houston, 2 out of 3, each of those. And not just that, not just winning 2 out of 3 against Boston, 2 out of 3 against Houston, but bats really get cooking. 6 games, obviously, in that series. 6 games in that series. And all 6 of those games, Bohm, the Guardians had 10-plus hits. So, you figure it out. The bats are cooking right now. And not just, Jose obviously had his big night. He took yesterday off. It wasn't just Jose. Yesterday he had a day off, as I said. Josh Bell goes deep. Andres Jimenez goes deep. So now you're getting... now we're starting to get these guys doing what they do or did last year. They weren't necessarily a home run hitting team last year at all, but you started to see them, getting hits and moving guys over and going first to third and all that good stuff. And the key is, like in the first, I mentioned they had 11 hits. So, again, in every game of the homestand, the Guardians had 10-plus hits. Yesterday, 11. And of those 11, the top 5 guys in the order. Steven Kwan had a hit. Ahmed Rosario had a hit. Josh Naylor had a hit. Josh Bell had 3 of them. Andres Jimenez had a hit, which also happened to be a home run. So, feeling pretty good. And then, oh, by the way, Shane Bieber goes 7 scoreless, gives up 1 walk, 3 hits, struck out 9 as the Guardians knock off the Astros 5-0. So, at least for now, okay, let's put to bed the idea of trading Shane Bieber, at least for right now. Now, a lot of baseball there is to be played, okay? And that's kind of what, I don't know. I've said this, whether it was Donovan Mitchell and people getting all up in arms about, oh, my gosh, he said he likes New York. Let this play out a little bit. Let the season play out a little bit. People in mid-May were saying trade Shane Bieber because the Guardians aren't going anywhere. Now, look, I want to believe that this is going to be a sign of things to come. This was the catalyst they needed. They get guys healthy. They get guys feeling good at the plate. Will Brennan has been red hot. We know about Josh Naylor, and now all of a sudden Josh Bell finds some power. Andres Jimenez finds some power. Hopefully going to be healthy when that series begins tomorrow in San Diego. But, baseball's a long season. I mean, this is a team that they played 65 games. A bit underwhelming? Sure, absolutely. But there is a ton of baseball to be played, and you just can't make decisions on whether a team is or isn't in mid-May. And by the way, for those that were saying, oh, well, this team isn't going anywhere, I guess in a sense, you feel like then a lot of the guys you counted on or at least believed in last year, whether that be Jimenez, whether that be, obviously Josh Naylor and Stephen Kwan, but in particular guys like Kwan and Jimenez, who, ended up being a critical part of this team's 92 wins. The wild card series win over Tampa Bay took New York to 5. So what? All of that last year was just a fluke? I can't believe that. Now, some of it is, okay, pitchers have adjusted. Will Brennan got off to a horrible start. I should say a decent start. Then he went into the big slump. Now he's made the adjustments. These are all the things we talked about, over the last month or so, or over the last 2 months. As they've been struggling and as the bats have been thawing out, the bottom line is, because this team is so young, last year it was, well, hell, they don't even know what they're doing. They're just having fun. And there's something cool to that. And some of that's true. Then what happens the next year, again, it's the major leagues. The book's out. We know how we're going to attack Will Brennan. We know how we're going to attack Andres Jimenez. We know how we're going to attack Stephen Kwan. And then if those guys don't answer, well, we're just not going to pitch to a guy like Jose Ramirez, and, we can live with that. If one of those guys finally beats us, fine. Well, now you start to have these guys, the Jimenezes, the Bells, the, Stephen Kwan, Ahmed Rosario. Now these guys are starting to hit. And like I said, you go 6 straight games with 10-plus hits, you're feeling good about the bats. They head out west. They're a game and a half back of the Minnesota Twins. Now, okay, let's all say it together. Boy, that Central Division really sucks. Yeah, it does. But you know what? Doesn't matter. Nobody's above 500. Minnesota's leading the division at 33-33. So the Guardians with a game and a half deficit heading into tomorrow night, as they will take on the San Diego Padres for 3 and the Arizona Diamondbacks for 3. And if you haven't been paying attention, Arizona is leading the National League West. It's almost like, you look at the records and you said, okay, one team's 40-25, another one's 31-34. Somebody told you that before the season, that, on June, whatever it is, those would be the records. Okay, well, that's easily, that's San Diego leading the division. No. Arizona has been a big surprise. They're 15 games above 500. They're leading the West by 3.5 games over the Dodgers. And then the San Diego Padres are 3 games below 500. So we'll see what happens. They head west, but, another great performance by Shane Bieber. And I want to talk about this right out of the gate. 216-626-7901. 216-626-7901. You can also find us on Twitter. Stream us on Twitter Monday through Friday, 1 to 3. We do the show. And you can stream it on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. Also on YouTube, type in the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and you'll be all set to go. So, I know that there was, and still will be, a lot of talk about Shane Bieber. Do you move him? Do you not move him? What do you do right now? And I think the bottom line is this. Regardless of where they are at in the standings, if this front office, if Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff get absolutely bowled over with a deal, they'll probably make it regardless. But the chances of that happening probably are not very high, because we know this team, and certainly in the case of Bieber, that it's been no secret, the asking price is very, very high. And there are some teams that really aren't sold on Bieber. I was reading Ken Rosenthal's column yesterday in The Athletic, and he basically said there was one, they do that rival executive who speaks on condition of anonymity. And basically what he said was, look, Shane Bieber's good, but he's not great anymore. He's lost some velocity on the fastball. He's a guy that we think could probably help us get to the playoffs, but once we got there, would he put us over the top? We're not sure. Now, that's just one guy. But as it relates to the Guardians, I think Shane Bieber is critical if we're going to talk about the Guardians winning this division, if we're going to talk about the Guardians getting in the postseason, and that happens if they win the division, then I think Shane Bieber has to remain a part of this rotation. Unless, the only thing I would say is that, again, there's a lot of baseball to be played. Now, we've seen the good side. We're starting to see the good side, 2 out of 3 against Boston, 2 out of 3 against Minnesota, or 2 out of 3 against Houston. And, the bat's coming alive, 10-plus hits in each of the games, each of those 6 games on the homestand. So you're feeling pretty good. If something starts to go the other way and over the next month they are garbage, well, then they're probably going to make that decision, and Shane Bieber might very well be dealt. The question is, when are you going to be able to get the most for him? Is it going to be right now? Is it going to be at the trade deadline? Is it going to be this winter? Nobody has a real answer for that. Many people have speculated probably more so this winter, but again, there probably won't be a whole lot of options out there. This is shaping up to be, if you read, the analysts and listen to the analysts, that this is shaping up to be a trade deadline that's going to be very, very slim pickings, which that could work in the Guardians' favor if they're looking to move Bieber because, hey, he's pretty much the only one out there. How desperate are you going to be? Well, this is how desperate. We want X, X, and X. So I would say this. This rotation is they already have Tristan McKenzie back. This rotation is also, you've got Aaron Savali back. As far as Bibee and Allen, who have been absolutely incredible, okay? They have been absolutely incredible. But as far as those guys are concerned, you keep riding those guys. They've been really the MVPs of this team, co-MVPs of this team to this point because they stepped right in. We didn't know what to expect, and they have really held it together. Here's the reality, though, Bohm. Tanner Bibee and Logan Allen, when you start talking about logging, big innings or, however many innings they would get, I mean, they started the season in the rotation, all of a sudden you've got to start thinking about they hit that September wall, or maybe it's a little bit sooner, God forbid, but it happens. And these guys they're very talented, but it happens to all of them. And so to think that they're just going to cruise on through, both of them, and, keep doing what they've been doing, it sounds like wishful thinking. Maybe one of them does, maybe both of them does, but really the numbers bear it out. Usually these guys hit a wall. And keep in mind, and Tito says this all the time, getting outs at the big league level, when you're saying, well, he pitched the same amount of innings in Akron as he's at this year. And, well, that's, it's pretty much the same. It's not the same because what he has to go to, what they have to go through, whether it be Logan Allen, whether it be Tanner Bibee, these guys have to work extra hard to get guys out. This isn't like AA or even AAA when you can kind of put it in cruise control. You're that much better than the competition. So, did you send him the link yet? Of course not.
I thought I did.
No, apparently you did. Just need the link, he says. If you could get on that, we'd appreciate it. All right, thanks, Bohm. It's all right. Bohm's writing some songs, writing some love letters to his girlfriend. Mitch Lawrence, by the way, is going to join us coming up at 1:20. Game 5 of the NBA Finals is coming up tonight. Will Miami make this a series? I don't know. Bohm, what do you think? Do they make it a series? At least extend it one more game, or does Denver pretty much put them away?
Chico, I don't expect Miami to. I mean, I expect them to put up a fight, but I think Denver's going to bring it home tonight. I mean, we've just seen in so far 3 out of 4 games, Denver has been far more dominant in so many facets, and obviously Jokic has just been unstoppable. But Jamal Murray as well. I don't know if they can contain him. I feel like he's going to have a big game as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm expecting Denver to bring it home tonight.
Okay, yeah, at home, they're 9-point favorites. I mean, you know what? I go back to what EK said, and I'm going to present this to Mitch when he joins us here in a few moments. I get, is it as easy as saying, like, because Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, they haven't done anything shooting the basketball. I mean, Max Strus has been awful. And it's almost like if that's how Miami's going to shoot the basketball and that's how they're going to shoot from beyond the arc, they don't have a prayer. They just don't have a prayer. And so, you look at Denver and you look at where they're at right now. They're up 3-1. Miami has to go on the road. Young guys, and I know that Strus and Vincent have stepped up in certain situations, but I'm with you. I don't see it. Forget about the spread. I mean, we can talk about, well, do you think they cover, not cover? But I think in terms of just, does Denver finish off Miami tonight? Yes. Now, Eric Spoelstra is Eric Spoelstra for a reason, and Eric Spoelstra might very well, have something in the bag, and maybe Jamal Murray goes cold. Maybe, more importantly, Miami, does start heating up from the outside. And if that's the case, well, I like their chances, I guess. But if they can't do that, they're going to be in trouble. All right, let's bring him in right now because he's got a little bit of a crisis going on at home. So let's bring in our buddy Mitch Lawrence, longtime New York Daily News columnist, now with Sirius XM NBA Radio. Mitch, as he's been telling us, resides in Dallas, Texas. Now, I have a nephew who lives in Houston, and let's just say down in Texas, it gets a little bit warmer down there. And Mitch is joining us right now. Apparently, the AC is out. The repair guy is coming at the top of the hour, so we moved him up a little bit. But how bad is it? Because when you say it's a crisis in some of those states.
Well, it can be. It's not a crisis right now, but we're looking at temperatures above 100 starting in a couple of days. And actually, I'm a little west of Dallas in a town called Fort Worth. Don't know if you've ever heard of it. Home of the TCU Horned Frogs.
Isn't that where Dallas originated? JR and Sue Ellen and all that. Was that Fort Worth or?
I'm not sure. Back then I was living in Dallas I was working at the Morning News covering the Mavericks 100 years ago when Dallas was a big show, but never watched it. But it was obviously, the only thing bigger than that show down here is the Cowboys. And they continue to be bigger than everything, including the Mavericks, the Texas Rangers, who are having a banner season for them, and the Stars hockey team. The Cowboys rule the roost. There's nothing bigger. Talk radio, sports radio, Chico, every day they're concerned about the right offensive guard for the Dallas Cowboys, stuff like that.
It's kind of like here in Cleveland with the Browns. I mean, it's very similar. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So how have you been?
Been all right. This series, I think, kind of as expected.
Downer.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
I just lost you.
What's that? You just lost me? Uh-oh. Can't hear me? We got it. Boom. You able to? All right. We're working on Mitch Lawrence. Hopefully he can hear us now. Maybe not.
Now I can hear you.
All right. Now we got it. All right. So, Mitch, if I posed it this way, the biggest reason that Miami is down 3-1 to Denver, I think the obvious one is going to be Jokic. But I'm just curious, what in your mind, what is the biggest reason Miami really isn't in this series right now, 4 games in?
They're getting beat by a better team.
Okay, that's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and the Nuggets aren't world beaters. Their regular season win total was 53 games. They would have been 4th in the East. I think they would have been even behind Philadelphia. And they were the first seed. The first time they were number 1 seed, which is great. And they had a chance to win 60 games for a long time. And then they just, they mailed in the last few weeks. But they're just a better team. They're bigger, they're better, and they got too much Jokic.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Really, I mean, look at their role guys, how they've stepped up. The Christian Brown and Bruce Brown, especially the last game, versus the Caleb Martin. Everybody wanted Caleb Martin to be the MVP of the Eastern Finals. He's been awful. Gabe Vincent struggled at points. So listen, they're just losing to a better team. But this is not a great team.
Yeah.
in terms of history. They're a good team, and Jokic is a hell of a player. I mean, there are 13 people who have been back-to-back regular season MVPs. He's one of them, so we know he's a hell of a player, but this is the first time in the playoffs where he's been the best player on the court throughout, and that really talks about his legacy and his stature. He is now a guy who you have to consider, all right, he's won one, let's see how many he can win, and then we're going to start putting him, we'll line him up with the other greats.
Mitch, I feel like if we go back throughout Miami's run here in the playoffs, certainly we were talking about big games for Jimmy Butler, but you mentioned Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, like these guys.
Right.
Max Strus he put up a donut. Like, I mean, he's not even scoring. Gabe Vincent minus 21 and plus minus. So it's like, you look at the final score from, I think it was Friday's game, 108-95. If Miami could just get some contribution from those guys, but they are getting absolutely nothing out of them.
Right. And, well, is it because they were undrafted? No. Is it because maybe Denver's figured out how to defend them? Maybe these guys can't deal with the moment. But the bottom line is the reports out of Denver is Tyler Hero's coming back tonight. He hasn't played in 8 weeks? Are you kidding me? I mean, that's desperate. He's going to be hunted down. First of all, he's always hunted down as a defensive liability by the other team.
Right.
He hasn't played in 2 months. Are you kidding me? I can't believe Pat Riley's actually allowing this to happen. But it speaks to their inability to find scoring. Because what does Tyler Hero do when he's on? The only thing Tyler Hero does on the court is he can score in bunches. He can't defend. He dribbles too much. He's a turnover machine. But they need scoring in this series. And where are they going to get it from?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that with Tyler Hero. I just think at this point, if you're Pat Riley, does it reek of desperation? Sure.
Yes,
but I just think with Strus,
you're down 3-1.
Yeah, but with Strus and with Strus and Vince, guys that just were pretty consistently putting in buckets now are just ice cold. I mean, they're probably just going to let Tyler Hero do his thing. I mean, if you can, I don't know how he's going to shoot. I mean, I don't know what his conditioning's like. I have no idea how he's going to return.
Been off 8 weeks. His conditioning is awful.
Yeah.
Probably.
And it was never really good.
He's going to be exposed. They're going to go after him. They're going to target him because that's what these teams do. There's no secrets out there. They know the deal. But, yeah, it's desperate. You're down 3-1. It was 1-1 just only, 7-8 days ago. You were in great shape, and then you went home. Now you can't win a home game if you're Miami. So, yeah, and we all – I thought it would be – I don't know if I said it on your show, whatever. I thought it would be 6 games at most, maybe a 5-game series for Denver. They're just too good. They're too big. And when they get contributions from these guys off the bench, you really aren't looking at his scores like Bruce Brown, as I talked about, then, how's Miami going to deal with that team? Because Miami, and while I'm telling you that Denver's I don't consider them a great team. They're a very good team. What's Miami? Miami's they're not close to being a great team. They're a team that took advantage of, we saw their path to the Eastern Conference Finals and through the Eastern Conference Finals, and good for them. And they almost threw that whole Eastern Conference Finals away on that crazy play that Derek White made in the final seconds to force the Game 7. But I mean, you just wonder about a team like Miami, even now making it to a finals when you look at what they have on the floor against a very good team and a better team.
Okay, so let's go here let's stick with Miami for a moment, because there have been plenty of rumors about Dame Lillard and if he's out in Portland and he would fit well in Miami seemingly. How I don't know, how real of a possibility do you think that is, Dame Lillard ending up in South Beach?
Well, there's all kinds of reports out that Portland wants to build around Dame Lillard. They're looking to move that pick they have at the top of the draft, their 3rd overall, maybe package it with someone to go get a star to try to get Dame Lillard some help. There's that theory that they don't want to move Dame Lillard. You see reports Dame Lillard doesn't want to leave to go to Miami. Would he rather go to Brooklyn? I don't know. You're going to have to give up a ton to get Damian Lillard. Does Miami have enough? What are you going to give up if you're Miami? What do you want? What can you give up to go get Dame Lillard? I just don't think they have the assets. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. What can they give up for Dame Lillard that Portland would want at this stage? That's the problem. So, listen, Miami's always going to be in the hunt for these players, whether they have the assets or not. Pat Riley thinks he can, always try to get a superstar. They're always mentioned for Giannis Antetokounmpo in terms of his next step. What's his destination? So Chico, yeah, I'm sure they're going to be involved, but when push comes to shove, is Portland going to make a deal with them and take 45, 50 cents on the dollar for Dame Lillard? That's not going to happen.
All right. As far as somebody else who could be looking at a new area code, new zip code next year, Chris Paul, Boston. If I said one of the LAs, Clippers or the Lakers, what would be more realistic? The Clippers or the Lakers in that scenario?
Well, Kyrie wants to get to the Lakers, but I don't think the Lakers are going to make a deal for Kyrie. So that could open up things for Chris Paul. My big thing about Chris Paul is he's always hurt in the playoffs now.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible thing. I mean, just think about this guy a couple of years ago, Chico. Phoenix has a 2-0 lead against Milwaukee. It looks like Chris Paul is going to waltz to his first NBA ring, his first championship. He is now going to separate himself from these other guys, the Charles Barkleys of the world and the Patrick Ewings and Stockton Malone. He's going to get a ring, and now you consider him in a different class of point guard because he's going to lead a team to a title. And then what happened in the last 4 games? They got smoked, and Giannis was a man among boys, right? I mean, ever since then, he can't stay healthy in the playoffs. They get bombed at home in these big closeout, elimination games, whether it was against Dallas a couple of years ago. This year they got destroyed by the Nuggets, right? I mean, am I excited that Chris Paul is going to join the Celtics? Only if they change their playbook. Right now they run an AAU offense. It's like every man, when the heat's on, every man's for himself, and just go out there and chuck the ball up, chuck up threes, and don't work the ball around. I mean, it's like the total opposite of like Golden State or Denver, right? And so if you're looking at Chris Paul, what are you going to give up for him? He probably, their signs are he wants, word is he wants to move on. What do these teams actually want to give up for a guy? And then once you get him, what's the guarantee? There is no guarantee. There's no guarantee he's going to be around in the playoffs.
Were you surprised they decided to extend Mazzulla, Boston?
No, I had heard that they were going to stick with him. He's Brad Stevens' protege.
Okay.
As much as he failed, but that was a whole team failure. And that really was, besides Tatum getting hurt in Game 7, Jaylen Brown was awful. And, I think it took some of the heat off of Joe Mazzulla. But, when you go down 0-3 like they did, and the heat was on Joe Mazzulla, and there was talk about him being relieved. Well, the talk I had heard was he's not going to get moved out. Brad Stevens is committed to him. Now we'll see how long that lasts. But no, I wasn't surprised he'd be back for at least next season.
Let me ask you, we're talking to Mitch Lawrence, longtime New York Daily News and Dallas Morning News columnist covering the NBA now with Sirius XM NBA Radio. Let me ask you a question on the Lakers, because a year ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember like Jeannie Buss sent Magic Johnson calling into a radio station or having him on a radio station to let everybody know that, Russ Westbrook was LeBron's decision and not ours. And basically, there was a lot of controversy between the front office and ownership and LeBron. Has that died down a little bit when we start talking about who the Lakers might add or move on from, or is it pretty much just like it was a year ago?
I think the fact that the Lakers went as far as they did this year, and Rob Pelinka had himself a good year in terms of adding the right pieces and getting rid of Westbrook and, showing that he could build a decent enough roster around LeBron, that what they got to the conference finals, which was a surprise for a lot of people after being a playing team. I think a lot of that stuff has died down. I tend to think that there's some stuff that's sent out by different factions. The LeBron, Rich Paul faction, if they're unhappy, they're going to hear you'll hear things, right? They always do that. They'll make their displeasures known. But I think the fact that the Lakers went as far as they did this year, I think the heat is kind of off. But Now they have a significant offseason. LeBron is not retiring. We know that.
No.
He's going to have a farewell tour. Can't wait to see his stop in Cleveland during the farewell tour, right? What they give him out there. But, he's going, he wants to play with Bronny. There's no way he's not coming back. And to me, all this talk, especially down here about him, joining Dallas is absurd. That's never going to happen. So I think he'll still be with the Lakers. We'll see what happens with the rest of their roster. But I think right now, all is well between their different factions out there. But at the first sign of trouble, there'll be people who are sent out to, throw trash throw dirt on the other team, throw mud at the other side. Because that's the way it always is, right?
Yep. All right, we'll get you out of here with this, buddy. One last thing on the Denver Nuggets. They could very well close this out tonight at home. 9-point favorites. We've talked a lot about Jokic, and justifiably so, but do you think that these playoffs have really elevated in people's minds their opinions on Jamal Murray? Because I felt like going into the playoffs, it was like, oh, a good player. I feel like now he's taken that to another level.
Yep, you're right. And I'm glad you mentioned him because I was going to bring him up when you mentioned Jokic. I mean, Jamal Murray, first of all, he came off this catastrophic knee injury where he actually thought like the Nuggets were going to give up on him, which I guess that's what goes through players' minds when they have these things like they're going to just send me off.
Sure.
They stuck with him. They hung with him. His track record in the playoffs, we know what he did in the bubble. He had sensational 50-point scoring games, but they were in a neutral gym with no fans. The whole bubble aspect is why I've always kind of, set that aside as a different type of title, not quite as good as an NBA title. So you wondered, what could he do in a regular big-time playoff season where they've got to travel? He has to do this in front of the venomous, hostile, road on the road in front of the other team's crowds. And he's been phenomenal, sensational, great playmaker. He and Jokic now, I expect they'll close out tonight, Chico, there'll be talk about where these guys shape up in terms of the all-time tandems. Everybody's going to have to pump the brakes on that. But certainly getting your first ring elevates you. And the fact that he has played as well as he had against a very good team defensively in Miami just adds to what everybody should think about him. He's to me, he's one of the top shooting guards and one of the top players in the game now, top shooting guards. And he's done it because this is where you have to elevate him because he's done it in the playoffs against big time competition. He's put up big numbers, historic numbers in the conference finals. He's carried that into the playoffs. Miami is a great team in terms of in terms of what they do defensively. There's no cutting corners, so you're going to have to prove yourself every game, which he's basically done for the most part. I don't want to use that term great too much with Miami because they're definitely a flawed team in a lot of ways. But no, Murray has been he has done himself a world of good, and he should be recognized going forward as this guy is now, on his way to he's an all-NBA player. The problem for him is going to be as long as Jokic is on the court, he'll never be an MVP player. Because Jokic is always going to get the consideration. There's the clear-cut 1-2, Kobe, Shaq, right? Jokic, Murray. And I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying where they stand.
Yep. All right. He is Mitch Lawrence, again, longtime NBA columnist, now with SiriusXM NBA Radio. We appreciate you coming on today in the midst of what could be a crisis.
Warm.
And it is a crisis in Texas. So get that AC fixed. We'll talk to you soon, pal. Thank you.
Watch you down the road, Chico. Always enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. That is, again, Mitch Lawrence joining us here on the Chico Bormann Show. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we will play a little fair or foul. And also, if you want to chime in, you can do so, 216-626-7901. Again, Game 5 tonight. Is it all going to be over after tonight as the Denver Nuggets have home court? Jokic, Murray against a Heat team that can't seem to throw it in the ocean right now. Well, we'll talk more about that as the show goes along as well. Chico Bormann Show, more to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Good stuff there from Mitch Lawrence as we get set for Game 5. Could be the end of the NBA season tonight in Denver as Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and company take on Jimmy Buckets and the Miami Heat. Before we get to fair or foul, I'm in such a good mood today, Bo, because we had a special delivery. You may remember, was it last week? Last week, the week before, we talked to Layla Corey, who is with Nirvana Superwater, and really, really enjoyed the conversation with her. Now, if you're not familiar with Nirvana Superwater, this is what we have here on the desk here. It is infused super water, but this is something everybody's looking for. What is your supplement offer? What is your special product offer? This one is all about HMB, okay? And in short, HMB is, if you go to hospitals around and you talk about, infusions and what medicines people are getting, pretty much all across the country, HMB is a part of that process of helping cancer patients along. Well, now all of a sudden, HMB, because again, it not only increases lean muscle mass and boosts metabolism, but increases maximum oxygen. And as we get older, you say, well, just eat more protein. It is impossible to eat the amount of protein we have to eat in order to reverse some age-related diseases. Enter this, Nirvana Super Water. I've got the strawberry basil lemonade. Right here is the orange peach, also very good. But, folks, I can't tell you, first of all, you need it to taste good. It tastes good. But you can do your own research on this stuff and check out exactly what HMB is all about. You're getting a daily dose of this stuff, and I'm telling you, it's going to make a huge difference in your life. And as far as, you work out, maybe you work out a lot now, but the recovery time isn't as great, or you just want to feel better. That's what's great about this is there are athletes, and if you go to the website, Kyle Lowry, we got David Njoku, we've got others that are talking about this and promoting this and use this product, but it's not just for the professional athletes. It's also for the, guys like me, guys like Bohm, guys and girls like you out there that are just wanting to feel better and feel healthy. That's what Nirvana Super Water is all about. So you can check that out. Again, we got orange peach. We've got the strawberry basil lemonade. Go to feelsuper.com. Again, that's feelsuper.com and check out everything I'm talking about. You can get yours. And what's fun about this is we've just started this. So in about a month, we're not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you, I had one bottle of it and now all of a sudden my world's changed. No, that's not how it works. And they know that's not how it works. I'm excited to partner with these guys. And after about a month, I guarantee we're going to be having noticeable differences. Recovery time. I try to work out maybe 3, 4, 5 times a week. But I'm also in my mid-40s. So being able to bounce back just isn't a thing. Boom, for you sweat a lot. You rock out a lot. I know you've got the cucumber melon over there, don't you?
Cucumber lime.
Cucumber lime. That's right.
Now let me tell you something about this cucumber lime, because I am not cucumber water guy. Yeah. This tastes better than cucumber. That little twist of lime actually makes it quite enjoyable to drink, and I'm really excited about it because I was telling you before the show, I feel unhealthy if I'm not drinking this, because reading up on some of the stuff that Layla presented us about HMB, it sounds incredibly beneficial. I have to go out to New York at the end of the month for a show. I want to bring some of these out specifically for the show because I know it's great for recovery, and honestly, I feel good after drinking it. I don't think it's just me. You feel that too, right?
Well, you get it in your head that you're. First of all,
I think there's actually it feels good.
You're drinking something that is healthy, but again, this HMB, I had not heard of it. I had not heard of HMB and what this is used in cancer therapies and rehabs and treatments and whatnot. And now they have a doctor that has been able to basically infuse this into water, and the results, again, go to the website, feelsuper.com. A ton of athletes are looking at it and are using it. And but again, the great thing is, if you're just struggling, you want to feel better, you want to get more protein in your diet, you want to all the stuff that you have to have, this has, and then on top of it, HMB. So go to feelsuper.com, and hey, don't just believe me or Bohm. You can try it for yourself. All right, 216-626-7901, 216-626-7901. What is this, Joey? Am I reading that right, Bohm? Joey wants to talk about the Browns, I guess. Hello, Joey.
Hey, Chico. How are you doing?
Good. What's going on, bud?
Not much. I just had a question for you. I saw there was a lot of hype during OTAs last week, a lot of good passes. I saw one to Marquise Goodwin and then Elijah Moore. I'm just wondering, what do you think about the possible futures of David Bell and Anthony Schwartz? I mean, they were very high draft picks, and it'll be interesting to see who they're going to keep on the roster this year.
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you, Joey. I would say this. David Bell, I have a lot more confidence in than Anthony Schwartz. Boom, I know that's your boy. David Bell, I think I watched him a lot in the Big Ten playing for Purdue. I think he's going to be a very good possession receiver. I think he's a guy, he has great hands. He's known for that, was known for that playing in his days in Purdue and in the Big Ten. I think David Bell is going to find a place, is going to find a role in this team. I don't know about Anthony Schwartz. I just don't. I mean, like what we're saying about David Bell being able to catch passes, Anthony Schwartz still hasn't demonstrated that on a consistent basis. I mean, yes, he's got blazing speed that you can't teach, but you know, it's kind of useless if you're not running the right routes, and when you are running the right routes, you're not able to haul passes in. So, I without a doubt, guys like David Bell, even Cedric Tillman. Like Cedric Tillman, I don't think is going to be a monster contributor right away, but I think in 2 years from now, because all of the guys that you see now in the Browns receivers room, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Marquise Goodwin, some of these guys aren't going to be around. Probably a couple of them past this year. So now all of a sudden, a guy like Cedric Tillman could end up being huge just because he doesn't flash and doesn't just burst on the scene his rookie season. It takes a while. I mean, receivers and all of these positions, it takes a while to learn and feel comfortable. But I think that David Bell will find a role. I think Cedric Tillman absolutely will. I'm not so sure about Anthony Schwartz. I mean, I hope the best for him, but I'm just not that sure about Anthony Schwartz. Sorry, Bo.
No, I mean, I've come around to being in concurrent with such sentiments.
Concurrent with some. What are you trying to drop here, Bohm? I've come around to being in concurrent with some of these sentiments. Just talk in normal language, Bohm.
Is it worse than Succession?
You're something else, man. Yes, I found myself coming to a concurrent with many of your sentiments. Do we want to go to fair or foul now, or I'm afraid to. I don't know how you're going to word this. All right, let's do it. Let's do a little fair or foul on the Chico Bormann Show on this Monday. Here is Michael Bohm.
All right, Chico. Well,
I'm in concurrent with many of your sentiments. Well, thank you.
Well, Chico, I want to start off with the Guardians because we saw their bats are alive and breathing. I think that's safe to say. Now,
Alive and breathing.
yeah, signs of life.
Yes.
Let's start with Josh Naylor, who is one of several players who've been hitting quite well recently. And I saw a stat for the team going into this weekend. I'm not sure if it has changed, but going into this weekend, Chico, Josh Naylor was tied for first in the majors with RBIs after 7 innings. Fair or foul, Josh Naylor has been the most clutch player this season.
For the Guardians?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no question about it.
Do you think that it'll continue to be throughout the course of the season? Because Jose has really been stepping it up.
Yeah, I mean, Jose's Jose, but Naylor, let's go a step further. I mean, people may not realize, you look at RBI leaders, I think Josh Naylor's like 6th in the American League. He might maybe 5th in the American League. I mean, that's huge. And you're talking about a team where guys haven't been able to get on base. That tells me, and also remember, it wasn't that long ago, although it does seem like a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago when Josh Naylor was in that huge slump. Remember, he couldn't do it. I mean, it wasn't just him, a lot of those guys. But he has busted out, and yeah, I mean, I want to say since like the last 7 or 8 games, he's like putting up softball numbers. So, yeah, he's about as clutch a hitter as there is, and right now I'll say, yeah, he is their most clutch hitter, and not just clutch hitter, but clutch home run hitter a lot of times. Like, wow, you need a bomb. It seems like he's going to deliver that bomb in the critical spot.
Totally. I'll get on board with that. Now, on
you're
the other
in concurrent with those sentiments?
I do concur.
All right.
On the other end of the spectrum, though, Chico, Mike Zunino, he's been having some rough outings there. Fair or foul, it's time to move on from Mike Zunino.
Yeah, it is. I think the obvious is, it's bring in Bo Naylor. And my understanding is Zach Meisel did a really good piece, and basically talking to some of the development guys about, what he still needs to work on. It's more from a defensive standpoint than anything else. Now I realize you say it can't be worse than Mike Zunino, and that's probably true. Mike Zunino on Saturday, all I can say is he must be hurt. Now, look, his bat has always been hit or miss, and now he just doesn't. Like the power that he used to be a hitter, like when he was in, I think it was like Seattle, he would hit right around the Mendoza line, but he might be able to hit 25 bombs, but he was going to strike out a ton. Now you don't have that. On top of that, what you saw Saturday with those Tristan McKenzie needed to do a better job of keeping runners on base. I get that. But you know how they tell people, and like Padone just did a first pitch. I forget who it was. I think Lake County. Like what that looked like, Mike Zunino on Saturday looked like if you switched it, and instead of the fan throwing out the first pitch, they threw out, here's your chance to throw out a base runner. Like, that's what that looked like. That was, and I'm not really trying to, make a joke about this. Like, it was that bad. 2 of them back-to-back, just, nowhere near.
Who throws a mean deep ball, though, am I right?
Yes, Bohm. I concur with those sentiments also. Yes.
All right.
But, yeah, that was, does he need to go? Sure, but if Bo Naylor comes up, is he? I don't know if he automatically is your 1, and I know people are just going to concentrate on the bat. I get it, but Cam Gallagher probably goes to 1. Their thing is when they bring Bo Naylor up, they want Bo Naylor to play every day. If not, what he still needs to work on, he's not going to be able to work on. What he still needs to work on, he is able to work on at the lower levels now. Those of you that are screaming about service time, you're not wrong either. Yes, that's part of it as well. But I will say that, and I've been saying this, with the catcher position, one of the things they talked about is the meetings on a daily basis between pitcher and catcher, and not just one pitcher, the entire staff. That's how you develop that rapport. They said they're still working through that. He's still working through that. And, we'll be trying to make that happen. So he's coming. I just don't know if it's going to be as soon as we all want it to be. And unfortunately, Zunino's not getting any better.
Well, speaking of the minors, James Karinchak was unfortunately going to be heading in that direction, or maybe fortunately. Hopefully it benefits him.
Yeah.
He did start to show some promise, I felt like, and then it just seemed to kind of revert back to where it started. Is it fair or foul to expect a comeback out of Karinchak before the All-Star break in July?
I'll go foul. And I mean, I just want him at some point, because here's the other thing. And, we talk about the rotation and we talk about not trading Bieber because you don't know how long you're going to be able to count on Logan Allen and Tanner Bybee, not because they're not good enough, but will they hit that wall that all young guys do? But on top of that, the bullpen, and we had Terry Pluto on last week, and Terry Pluto said that was his biggest concern. And, now Trevor Stephan came in yesterday and did a great job. Granted, it was a 5-run game, but Trevor Stephan came in, looked good. They need the setup guys. They need the high leverage guys to get back to being great high leverage guys. Because when that doesn't happen, everything else around it can just crumble. And I think that's what you've seen from the bullpen. So I think with a guy like Karinchak, I don't care if he gets it together before the All-Star break. If he does, great. But when he does get it together, and hopefully he will, they need him and Trevor Stephan and, De Los Santos. I mean, that's for Tito to figure out. They need those high-leverage setup guys to be guys that he can rely on. Because right now, there really isn't. It was for a while. It was actually De Los Santos early on when Karinchak was struggling, now gone. When Stephan was struggling, seemingly getting it back a little bit, De Los Santos really stepped up. Then he had a few rough ones. So, and I think it's more just a case of, your bullpen every year is volatile. That's why every GM says, no matter what their bullpen did a year ago, what's your main concern? Bullpen. Because they're so volatile. But Tito needs two guys at least that he feels he can go to in high leverage situations when you're talking about setting up Emmanuel Clase. It's just, you got to have those guys, or we can talk all week long. We can talk about the bats and all that stuff. That bully, and they've been put in a bad spot because every game seemingly is one-run game and, high leverage situation. But if that can happen, and Karinchak could play a key and pivotal role in doing that, then yeah. But I'm going to say that happens after the All-Star break. And if he does, when he does, I just want it to be for good.
All right, well, before we move on from Major League pitchers, I was reading something yesterday about Corey Kluber, former Indians pitcher.
Yes.
Won a couple of Cy Youngs here in the land. And it was interesting how it seems like Cleveland has really been like a kryptonite for him. Like the last two times that he faced them, he got shelled. If you recall, last time prior to last week when he was with Tampa Bay, when it went into extras, and he pitched into 3 innings and then finally gave up the winning run in the 3rd inning. But I say all that to say that Corey Kluber was in my mind this weekend, and I was thinking I wanted to bounce this off you. Gauge your thoughts on the matter. Fair or foul, Corey Kluber is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think he is. The Cy Youngs, I mean, his career. Now, see, here's the thing. What will hold him back, did he do it long enough? Because, when the Indians made the trade for Corey Kluber, like he was in San Diego and he was kind of toiling in their farm system. He wasn't the Corey Kluber that we came to know and love and Cy Young winner. So he didn't just, burst on the scene. It took him a little bit of time. And then with the Indians' development and all that stuff, then he became that, multi-Cy Young guy. You saw him do it in the playoffs. 2016, I mean, he was on fumes heading into that final game. It wasn't his fault, but he had to really shoulder the load with Carlos Carrasco and Trevor Bauer out. I'm a little bit biased here. I don't think it's a shoo-in. I would say Corey Kluber, Hall of Famer, because during that stretch that he was dominant, he was it. I mean, he was as dominant can be. But will folks say, well, at the very beginning and at the very end, he faltered? It's tough, but I would say yes, he's a Hall of Famer.
All right, Chico. Well, moving on now to the gridiron because Trevor Sikkema, let me get it correct, at Pro Football Focus. I'm a big fan of his draft coverage, by the way. He does great work.
Does he know that?
Oh, I'm sure he does.
I'm sure he'd appreciate knowing that if you.
I used to listen to his podcast when I was in my hardcore NFL draft phase. It was so informative.
You had hardcore draft days?
You know I did, starting with Calvin Johnson.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Megatron. That's right.
Yeah, that's where it all began. And we wound up with Hall of Famer Joe Thomas. Lo and behold. Okay. So anyways, Trevor ranked the best defensive end duos in the NFL. And guess what, Chico? He has the Browns between Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. He has them first in his rankings, right ahead of Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. And then at third, the Eagles with Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, and Brandon Graham. Anyways, fair or foul, the Browns have the best edge rushing duo in the NFL.
I'll go fair with that. The only thing I will say is yesterday there was somebody that said he'd put Zadarius Smith above T.J. Watt, and I mean that
Homer
was,
take.
Yeah, that was, and I think he's from up in Canada, the guy that put it on Twitter. So at that point you got to wonder if those gases and all that stuff were. But I mean, look. Zadarius Smith is outstanding, and I think Zadarius Smith now under Jim Schwartz, the idea of just, hey, attack, and you're not going to be playing linebacker in a 3-4. We want you, I want you with your hand in the dirt, and I want you to just get off the ball and go get people. Well, him and Myles together doing that, yeah, I'd rank them 1 and 2 as well. But to say that Zadarius Smith's better than T.J. Watt, that's not what Sikkema was saying. It's what somebody tweeted. But yeah, as far as those two, the potential, and with Jim Schwartz in, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. Now, I feel like it's safe to say that this is the best rushing partner that Myles has had in his time as an NFL player. I mean, you look at your boy Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
Obviously a huge name, maybe even a bigger name than Zadarius Smith at the time you brought him in. But yeah, I mean, this has to be so exciting for Myles. This feels like the best guy that he's ever had to rush a passer.
Well, one thing that Jim Schwartz has said, and we're going to get into this here after the top of the hour. One thing that Jim Schwartz has said, not just here, but his days in Philly, and again, guys love playing for him. But one of the things that he has talked about is fresh legs and making sure that you have depth at that level, and guys, so you don't want your number one guy. You don't want, Myles Garrett. Okay, great. He's played. Then all of a sudden you get to the fourth quarter, 5 minutes remaining, and he's just got nothing. So he likes to rotate guys and will be rotating guys. I like that a lot, and I think it's something that Jim Schwartz is kind of harping on that, okay, yeah, your stars are your stars, but everybody's going to be getting a shot because it is a rotation thing. He wants his defensive linemen in the fourth quarter. Go back to those Philly years. His guys were always fresh in the fourth quarter, and he would preach that over and over and over again. He wants to do the same thing here in Cleveland.
All right, Chico. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mix in a little bit of golf today. Did you catch wind of how the Canadian Open finished?
I did, yeah. I didn't know it was that big of a deal for Canadian. I mean, good for a Canadian to win the RBC Canadian Open. But then another golfer,
fellow Canadian,
went to go celebrate with him, and he was tackled by security. Yeah. What a weird. The whole thing was weird. Do they consider the RBC Canadian Open, is that bigger than the U.S. Open here? Because it's a major, U.S. Open's a major, but nobody had won. There hadn't been a Canadian winner in that for so long. I don't remember how long. So this guy wins it.
And on a 72-foot putt.
Yeah, dropped a 72-foot putt. It was crazy. But, like, the response was incredible and amazing and all that. But then the guy that the security decides to go after is a fellow pro. Like, it would be like, I don't know, it would be like Brooks Koepka, winning, and Ricky Fowler goes out to celebrate with him and hug him, and security tackles Ricky Fowler. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. I don't know.
Fair or foul, that's the wildest finish to any golf event thus far this season.
This season?
This season.
Yes, I haven't seen many crazy finishes to golf events this season. So, yeah, I'd go fair with
Does
it.
the fact that it's not like a major, though, does that take away from it? Like, if it were a bigger tournament in
Like
Canada?
how crazy? Yeah, that's my whole point. Like, and I understand up there in Canada, like,
They love their fellow Canadians.
they love their fellow Canadians. They obviously love their hockey. Like Mike Weir, understand this. When Mike Weir, who was a Masters champion, left-hander, Mike Weir was considered royalty up there after he did that. So, yes, they do. I mean, they take care of their own. They love their own. But wow, it was just weird how that unfolded. You would have thought like he had just won the Ryder Cup for his team. You would have thought he just that was like a Ryder Cup celebration. But then again, how do you not know? How does security not know that the guy they're tackling, the guy they're taking down amidst the celebration, is a fellow tour professional? Like, I don't know. It was just very, very odd.
All right, now, before we move on from golf, I don't know if you were reading this weekend about some of the potential implications between this PGA and LIV merger.
Yeah, it's not a done deal yet. Yeah, now the government's going to get involved.
And it's sounding like if it did go through, then they would be able to inflict really strict fines on the LIV players that are coming back to the PGA. Meanwhile, it sounds like the PGA players would be getting better stakes on their end. So it sounds like
bone-in ribeyes or
no, like more money.
oh, better. Okay, all right. I didn't know you said better steaks. Higher stakes.
like-
you said, but you say better stakes. I'm thinking it's
Equity stakes.
Okay, I got you.
And while players in the LIV are not going to be getting any, and they could have, and it's a case-by-case basis too. So basically, Jay Monahan could like fine him whatever he wants, apparently. Fair or foul, it feels like the scales are balancing a little bit in terms of the frustration between PGA players and LIV players if this were to happen.
Well, where were they before?
I think the LIV players were happy. I thought they would have been excited for this because it's more opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have expected to lose a lot of money.
Yeah, and I think for the LIV players, okay, now I see where you're going with this. I think for the LIV players initially, yeah, they kind of like the idea that, hey, you know what, consider this real golf, even though we don't play 72 holes, and even though, we've got, whereas the PGA was like, no, that's not what you guys are playing isn't golf. And so now if you're talking about the fines and whatnot coming from Monahan, but see, this is where I'm confused. And there's many levels on this that I think are going to be confusing. But if Jay Monahan, the whole idea of the merger is to get, everybody on the same team essentially. And if you're still going to be fining guys like through what year? I mean through this year or through next? Because if it's after this year and he's still levying fines, I don't see how that's going to fly in the LIV Tour. Like, I didn't think that was, again, I don't know the fine print with these cases. And that's why I say, though, the government's getting involved. Like, the Senate committee is looking at this. I don't think Jay Monahan can just unilaterally start levying fines on guys from the LIV Tour after this season just because he doesn't like them or doesn't like. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I would think if you're a LIV player, you're pretty ticked off about it. And I think to some degree, justifiably so.
All right, quick follow-up. Fair or foul, This merger needs to happen for the well-being of golf. I mean, I'm not saying golf isn't going to survive without it, but just for like overall, I think you want to see all these players on the same courses together.
Yeah, I think, I'll say that. The way it was going was not going to be a success. You do want these players on the same tour and, playing the same events and not, basically what the Live Tour was doing was, hey, we're making more money playing 54 holes, but, also we're going to be able to play in major tournaments. Like, I thought it was kind of ridiculous when Brooks Koepka won the last major, and they're like, oh, wow, see, he proved something there. The Live Tour just sent a message that Brooks Koepka's good. I mean, what message did they send? Like, the Live Tour players are very good. Now, I guess the one thing that you could talk about is their preparation, 54 holes, is their preparation of 54 holes conducive to winning a major championship where you're playing 72 and all that comes with 72 holes on a tough course? I guess you can make that argument that, hey, there's something to be said for that in preparation. But I didn't understand the live response of like, yeah, see, we showed you. What did you show us? That Brooks Koepka's capable of winning a major? Gee, I never had any idea. I never knew he was that talented. Come on. It's ridiculous.
All right, Chico, well, I got another football one for you because it was reported as a rumor that the Steelers have been doing their homework on Chase Young. I'd be remiss if I didn't mix in just a tiny bit of Ohio State here.
Yeah.
Fair or foul, because obviously with Chase Young, it feels like he hasn't been able to stay healthy for most of his pro career.
Yeah.
Obviously missed some time towards the end of his career at Ohio State as well. Fair or foul, Chase Young and TJ Watt would surpass that duo of Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith for you.
No, foul. I mean, Chase Young still has a lot to prove. Chase Young's very talented, but Chase Young still has a lot to prove. And Zadarius Smith's been banged up too. But, Chase Young, he's got a lot to prove. I keep hearing that Detroit is really, really interested in him.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that for Chase. Play with Dan Campbell. That's a nice tandem right there,
Do you have your Chase Young jersey?
I have a Ohio State 2 jersey. I got it in the Terrell Pryor era though.
Oh, so does it say Pryor on the back?
No, it just they didn't sell them with names on them unless you got them like specially made.
How many Ohio State jerseys do you have, Bo?
4 or 5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's not that many, and they're all different too. I don't have any matching.
Oh no, of course not. Yeah, you definitely spread it around. I can definitely see that. All right, that's fair or foul. On this Monday, when we come back, we talked about Myles Garrett. We talked about Zadarius Smith and that duo, and just in general the defense and Jim Schwartz coming on board. Terry Pluto wrote a very good piece on Myles Garrett, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, what he said. We'll talk about that when we come back. It is the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. You can stream us live on Twitter each and every day. We're on Monday through Friday, 1 till 3. And you can check us out on Twitter at Chico Show CLE and on YouTube. Type in the Chico Bormann Show and hit subscribe. So I thought Terry Pluto wrote a very, very, very good article, very timely article, and one that needed to be written and also talked about. And that is talking about Myles Garrett. On the surface, okay, and I'm not trying to stir anything up, but like when I talk about, and I've talked about this a lot, that the Browns culture and winning culture and leaders need to be leaders. And one of the guys that I think is just kind of, I don't know, just kind of straddled the fence in that regard, just kind of done what he needs, is Myles Garrett. Now, before anyone says, look, Myles Garrett makes a lot of money to rush the passer. He does that very well. I'm not arguing with you on that. But certain guys, much are expected from, okay? And when you're Myles Garrett and you are clearly one of the best players in the league and obviously on your team, I think you'd want to see a little more leadership. And Terry Pluto brought this to light, as he usually does. I'm telling you, like every time, it seems like every time I'm thinking something or have a conversation about something, Terry writes something and it's like, yeah, that's exactly it. Okay, so go back to the end of the year. We talked about Jadeveon Clowney. Now, first of all, Jadeveon Clowney's accusations were absolutely ridiculous. That the coaching staff is trying to, essentially what he was saying, the coaching staff was more concerned about scheming for Myles Garrett to have an easier matchup for him to, get to the quarterback and him to create all the big plays. Whereas for Jadeveon Clowney, they didn't do that as much. Well, first of all, Myles Garrett is more disruptive than you are, Jadeveon. Myles Garrett is one of the best athletes in the league. So, yeah, they're going to be looking for mismatches, and Myles Garrett gets a mismatch more often than not. 9 times out of 10, he's going to exploit the hell out of that. But to take it a step further, there was more to that, in that does Myles Garrett receive kind of special treatment? Now, again, in the context that Jadeveon Clowney wanted to talk about it, like from a schematic standpoint, it was stupid. I mean, it was ridiculous. But he writes, and I remember this, and it was kind of glossed over, but now I start to wonder. Remember when the team, Kevin Stefanski, asked the entire team to go to the Hall of Fame last summer? Like, everybody went, and there was a lot of talk about, wow, that was really cool. You see not only Jim Brown, but the guys before you, the guys that came before you. Myles Garrett telling Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com, I don't want to go to the Hall of Fame until I'm in it. Okay. Somebody might look at that and go, oh, yeah. See, that's Myles being like, yeah, see, he doesn't even want to think about that sort of thing. It's no. Like, this was, and apparently they say, and I remember reading this at the time, or after the incident, Stefanski wasn't going to push it. Stefanski wasn't going to, but that's one of those where if you're Myles Garrett, what harm is that?
Chico, I relate to that, actually. Because as an aspiring musician, I don't like going to concerts because I get like jealous. I want to be the one on that stage performing.
Okay.
And so I feel like it's kind of similar in that it might be hard for him.
No, it's not. This is a team trip. You're going to the Hall of Fame. No, I'm sorry. It's not. I'm not. Those are things that leaders do. You're not counted on to be a leader. Nobody expects you to be a leader, Boom. They're counting on Myles Garrett to be a leader, okay? And when Myles Garrett, and by the way, and this he writes about this. He said other players on the team also noticed Garrett's absence and the team's lame response. Basically, they didn't do anything to him. And it was just like, well, okay, he can do whatever he wants. Now, somebody else does that, I would guess they're going to get a talking to by somebody, and they're going to end up going on the trip. But when it's Miles, and like I said, guys are going to follow what guys like Myles Garrett, or in the case of, say, Jadeveon Clowney last year, what they do. Oh, Jadeveon's not practicing? Well, I'm not going to practice. Like, that stuff filters down. Now, nobody's questioning, and I'm not questioning Myles Garrett in terms of how hard he works, his talent. We all know that. But I don't know. It just seemed like when there were times when the defense was bickering and the secondary was big, that could have been something that Myles, and you can say, well, Myles just, that's not his DNA. Being a leader is not in his DNA. Okay, I'm not asking him to be necessarily an animated, vocal leader. Usually that goes along with it. But Myles Garrett, in a situation where you play on the defense, you're the best player on that defense, and you've got guys that are out of position, you've got guys that are bickering on the back end, that doesn't have to come from somebody in the secondary. God knows John Johnson wasn't going to do it. John Johnson was actually feeding it. He was throwing, lighter fluid on it. Yeah, let's keep it going. Yeah, that's real smart. Great, nice leadership out of John Johnson. But in that case, Myles Garrett, and it doesn't even have to be something that the papers or the reporters find out about, but that should be something where Myles Garrett, as the highest paid player there and, the best player there, that he's got to take it upon himself. I'm sorry, he's got to take it upon himself. And the whole, remember when the driving stuff came out and, they allowed him to practice or whatever it was, or he couldn't practice for a little while. He did miss some time with the wrist injury. Those are things that you can't do anymore. You're Myles Garrett. I mean, the team, and you sure as hell can't do it and miss time because of it, but you shouldn't be doing it, period. Well, see, this is the crap that I heard back when I was very animated about Johnny Manziel, okay? And I'm not comparing Manziel to Garrett by any means. Garrett's a much better person, a much better player, cares about his team. So, but I remember when I would say things like, you know what, Johnny Manziel needs to get his ass to bed early. Johnny Manziel needs to get his ass in the film room, and he should be reading the playbook and not, reading whatever he's reading out in Vegas or drink menu, whatever the hell he was doing. He was partying his ass off. And I said at the time that when you are a quarterback in the National Football League, and certainly one taken in the first round, you may not like it, and some people may not like the idea that he's forced this onto him. But the bottom line is you have to act a certain way, okay? Maybe you don't cut it in the NFL because you're just not good enough. That's fine. But you at least got to go out and you got to give it some effort. You at least got to lay a foundation for allowing yourself and thus your teammates to have the best team possible. Johnny Manziel never did that. And there were actually people, because I would get into arguments on the air about this. Chico, what were you doing when you were 21, 22 years old? Guys, please don't bring that up because, I mean, one, it's irrelevant. Well, no, it's not, because he's just 20. No, he's not just 21 or 22. He's got a responsibility that is very, very big, okay? And so I always said Johnny Manziel, when others are going out or his buddies are trying to get him to go out, no guy. Russell Wilson did it. Others have done it. Like, no, I want to concentrate. If I'm going to be the leader of this team and I'm going to be the quarterback of this team and I'm going to be the best quarterback I can be on this team, then I've got to sacrifice. And things that everybody else might be doing, I can't do. Johnny Manziel wasn't willing to do that, and you see how long he lasted. Now, I want to reiterate, I am not saying that Myles Garrett is Johnny Manziel, but there are little things that Myles Garrett has done or not done that, like, man, you know what, Miles, this is your team. This is your team. Well, I don't like that. I don't want to be. Well, like it or not, that's how it is. And then Kevin Stefanski, when you just kind of say, oh, yeah, we talked to Miles and, we, gave him the slap on the wrist. Because now all of a sudden it's like Perry and Winfrey doesn't feel like he has to do that. Or it's not a good look. It's not a good look is all I'm saying. And I hope Myles Garrett is not a problem, okay? But is there more? It's exactly what I said about John Johnson. And maybe some people didn't like that either. But what I said about John Johnson, I'll say about Myles Garrett. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Now, part of the solution isn't just, hey, he can get to the quarterback. Part of the solution is if you see somebody not working hard or guys in the locker room bickering about coverages and who's getting more notoriety, stuff like that, you've got to nip it in the bud. And I wonder, and I think this is what Terry Pluto is writing about, and I agree wholeheartedly, this is what leadership, when we talk about winning culture, stuff like that, this is stuff that these guys have to do. You can't be driving your car 100 miles an hour around wet curves. And no, you can't be saying when everybody's going to the Hall of Fame for a trip to honor those that came before you and just as a team camaraderie event, no, I'm not going because until I get in, I don't want to be there. No, I would have just, like Belichick would have been like, get your ass on the bus. Like, what do you do? No, I'm not doing it until I get there. Well, maybe you will get there. You probably will get there, but we're going there right now as a team, and you're part of the team. Get on the bus.
Chico, I think, well, first off, there are a number of different ways to lead.
And I've already said that.
Yeah, for sure. I think when I think of the type of leadership that I would hope for out of Miles, I envision like a Jose Ramirez type, a guy who does by example and sets the tone in the clubhouse. And I certainly don't see Miles carrying out that same sort of thing. And it's interesting to me because he's been, if I'm not mistaken, voted a captain for the past several years. I wonder if this jeopardizes it at all.
What jeopardizes it?
I mean, you're expecting him to be the leader, but like to your point, he's not really like assuming that role and setting the right example.
Yeah. I think with Jose, like I didn't know where you're going with that at first. Like with Jose, like remember the story that Tito loves to tell, that he went to Jose Ramirez and I forget who else. Ahmed Rosario, and said, guys, I can't tell these guys, this was last year, I can't tell these guys that they have to run out every single ball, and I can't tell these guys that they have to be looking to take first to third and looking to take the extra base. I can't tell them that if you guys aren't doing it. It's the same thing here. You can't tell Perry on Winfrey, hey, dude, you need to be, at your best. You need to be not taking any chances off the field. You need to be, you need to have your best foot forward. And look, I understand. I'm not asking Myles to be somebody he's not. And by that, I mean, I'm not asking Myles Garrett to get in someone's face if that's not how he does it, but he doesn't have to get in somebody's face to get a point across. Like, this is part of the reason, one of like many smaller reasons that are adding up to bigger ones, why the Browns don't have that culture in Berea. Because you can have all the talent in the world. Talent is not lacking with the Browns. What is lacking more than talent is some of those guys that are talented, that are getting big money, are just kind of like, oh, well. And I get the feeling that, like, Kevin Stefanski, for the most part, is okay with that. And again, just like head coaches, not everybody is going to be yelling and screaming. I've said this about managers in the past, that, not everybody's going to be throwing water coolers all over a dugout. Not every head coach needs to throw a clipboard and grab guys by the mask and swear profuse. But you've got to at least set ground rules. You've got to enforce certain things. You've got to, you've got to put your foot down on certain behaviors. And I don't know if that happens in Cleveland. I don't know if it's happened in Cleveland for a long time. And now you say part of it is, well, hey, we're all adults here. We're all, let's be treated like adults. You get treated like adults. It's just like a kid. We'll treat you how you want to be treated when you start acting responsibly. You don't act responsibly, then, there should be repercussions, whether you're Myles Garrett or not. I mean, that's just it. Again, you go back to the New England Patriots. Tom Brady wasn't doing that. Like, he wasn't showing up 3 hours before everybody else was at the facility just because he absolutely had to have the work. He wanted the work, but he was showing everybody, like, look, I'm going to do this, then you better do this. And Bill Belichick had no problem calling him out. And that's the reason. You can talk about all of the other things the Patriots have had. And yes, Tom Brady was an incredible quarterback, maybe the best to ever play. But you ask anybody who played in New England, and they say the same thing. 1 through 53, every single guy checked their ego at the door, and if they didn't last long. And that included Tom Brady. Well, guess what? Myles Garrett is essentially Tom Brady. Like, if he's gonna set the winning culture that Tom Brady set in New England, those are things that he has to do. Whether it's going to a trip, going to the Hall of Fame trip, and not, I don't want to go because I'm not in it, and just go, okay? Just go. And avoiding certain other behaviors, like, yeah, I'm sure, it's fun to drive fast, and you got the fast cars and all that, and you want to go out and party and have fun, but you can't do that either. Like, you have to be more cognizant of that stuff. I don't know. This because I think this, and I'm not just saying Myles, but I think this is somewhat at the core of why leadership and this winning culture have been basically non-existent for the Browns. Yeah, they've had talent, and there were plenty of years when they couldn't get talent. There are plenty of years when, Joe Thomas's era where, God, you'd get him but you'd fail, whether it was Johnny Manziel, whether it was Corey Coleman, whether it was, Justin Gilbert, on it, Barkevius Ming. I mean, go on and on and on. That's not this team. This team has plenty of talent. But on top of the talent, the guys that are at the top of that list, as far as the best players, the highest paid, the guys that are looked to the most, they've got to act the part. Otherwise, forget about it. Forget about it. That's how I feel. I had to get that off my chest.
That was quite an impassioned rant.
Are you what's the word, the term you used earlier in the show? Are you
inconcurrent?
Are you inconcurrent with those sentiments?
With such sentiments?
I like how Bohm says he doesn't want to go to it. You go to concerts? What are you talking about?
It's been a while. I mean, occasionally.
But you don't want to go to concerts because you don't.
It makes me emotional. I can't stand, like, not being at that stage yet.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different, but I think there are similarities of why in some ways it could be a little bit triggering, because it has to be frustrating for him to not be in a position where he's, like, undoubtedly in at this point.
Well, but first of all, you can't get in until you're 5 years out from the NFL.
Sure.
So even, like,
I realize that,
like,
but I'm just saying I get why it could be tough for him, okay? I'm not saying he shouldn't have gone. I just see why it's tough.
I don't. I mean, I maybe I should. Maybe I should be more sympathetic, but I don't. Like, he can't get in, so it's not like they're keeping him out. This is simply a team exercise. This is simply the team saying, you have to, this is what we're doing. You just do it.
I agree. The purpose is to build team chemistry, and this is an opportunity to build that bond. And I feel like, I mean, it is. I don't want to call it a red flag because, like I said, I get where he's coming from, but, like, yeah, he should have gone just to set the tone and be the leader that they voted him in as captain, in years prior.
Well, I'll just say this. Like, when people say, oh, is this, if the Browns are bad, is that the reason? No, but I will say that this is what separates. We keep talking about getting over the hump. We keep talking about the winning culture. We keep talking. These are the things that have to take place and do take place on consistently winning clubs that, isn't that big of a deal. Well, we're going to Hall of Fame. Of course we're going to the Hall of Fame. Tom Brady, you imagine him like, no, I'm not going. Belichick be like, what do you mean you're not going? Like, I don't know. I look, he's a good guy. This is not about he is awesome in the community. He does a lot for charity. I love this dude. I mean, he is so ridiculously talented. There is something about watching him basically go around a guy and almost touch the ground, but not touch the ground at 6'5", 270 pounds. Like, to be able to have that kind of balance, like, he's a freak. I mean, you just don't have talented guys like that. He's been number one. He was number one recruit coming out of high school. He was, one of the best players, number one pick, obviously, for the Browns coming out of Texas A&M. I don't think he's ever had to answer to that sort of thing. And it's not like they're asking him to do things that are really just be a leader.
Fair or foul, Chico?
Look at you trying to squeeze in a little. All right.
Calling Myles Garrett a diva.
Foul. I don't think he's a diva.
He's no Terrell Owens.
No, he's not a diva. There's just a lot more he can do. And I want to go back to the reason for this conversation, okay? This is a big year for the Browns. Everybody knows that. There are jobs on the line. This is a huge year for the Browns. So things like this, okay, is he a diva? No, he's not a diva, but does he need to be better than he's been? And I'm not necessarily talking about him coming off the edge. I'm talking about him as a leader in the locker room. Yes, there is. Yes, he can be. He has to be. Just like, I expected much more out of John Johnson. Not only from his free safety position and being a ball hawk, but, dude, okay, if you're gonna miss some plays or you're gonna miss, your secondary is gonna struggle, the last thing I want to see you doing is kind of being the straw that stirs the drink for everybody to be bickering with each other. Like, that's not, no. You have responsibilities to go far and beyond that. You should be making sure everybody's on the same page. Anthony Walker took accountability. So I guess that's just it, accountability. Like, I want Anthony Walker missed time last year, and somebody said, well, the defense not being on the same page, it wasn't really your fault, Anthony, because you missed time. You were out when all that was going on. He's like, you know what? I don't care. I still take responsibility for that. If I'm the Mike linebacker, I'm the quarterback of the defense. Yeah, that's not to say that John Johnson as the safety and certainly for what they brought him in with and what they paid him, that, yeah, he shouldn't have done more. But we need more Anthony Walker accountability. We need more Anthony Walker type guys. You can't just have one or two. You can't just have, that one guy be somebody you just brought over from Indianapolis. This is a guy that's been with the club now for 7 years. And he's seen it rock bottom. So if anybody should know what it takes and how you have to conduct yourself in order to have guys take your lead and everything from work ethic, which again, nobody's questioning that, but just everything. How to, what you should and shouldn't do off the field. Coach asks you to take the bus and to go to the Hall of Fame and what's the big deal? Well, you don't have it in your schedule. It's going to bother you too. Just get on the damn bus. I mean, really, it's not that big of a deal. And again, I love Myles, but these are the little things that are going to become big things for this team if they don't do it this year. Because the talent's there. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more. Your calls, you want to chime in, 216-626-7901. You want to chime in on YouTube, go to the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and you're all set to go. And if you want to do that on Twitter, you can do it also there. My personal Twitter, @BigPlayChico and at Chico Show CLE. Back with more, winding it down on this Monday right here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. And, boom, I'm hoping you're taking in a lot of this Nirvana Super Water because you are sweating bullets. Like, it is warm in here. It always is warm in here. But
Yeah, I came in with the jacket. That's no longer, man, if I kept that on, that would spell trouble, Chico.
I'm worried that at some point, one of these shows, you're just going to, like, you're going to hit the floor. You're going to be dehydrated. This is why we need you to keep this.
Exactly why we need these.
Because you're
going to try to drink at least 2 a day.
Yeah.
I need my electrolytes, Chico.
So you need a lot
and
more.
And HMB.
A lot more than electrolytes, but yes, yeah.
Fair.
All right, your thoughts, and I'm curious, and feel free to, if you want to criticize me on that. I want this season to be a season that we all think it can be, and that, quite frankly, they need it to be. Like, if they are a disappointment again, if they are, God forbid, below 500, if they are underachievers, if they are undisciplined, and, we talk about those things, the undisciplined stuff and the penalties, and, like, yeah, that can't happen either. I don't care how talented you are. You can't get over, especially in a division and in a conference that is so very competitive. Those are the differences. Like, those are the differences between wins and losses. Last year you saw it, the Jets game. Oh, well, we weren't on the same page. Oh, well, that counted as a loss. You have those this year, and you end up having more of those than you have wins. Guys are going to be out of jobs. It's that simple. So, I know that they can do this. I know, and I feel in my bones that this is as talented a team as there is in the AFC. I really do believe that. Like, you say, wow, what about Buffalo? What about – the difference is those teams – like, I'm not saying Deshaun Watson is Patrick Mahomes, but could he be just a notch below? Sure he could. So then, okay, you look at Kansas City. Well, what do they do well? Well, they got a great offensive line. They drafted some young guys who have come together. Browns have a pretty good offensive line. You look at the skill guys. Kansas City no longer has Tyreek Hill. You do have Travis Kelce. Granted, he's above everybody else. But, I don't think their running game, for instance, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaac Pacheco. Isaac Pacheco was another late-round steal they got that just works defensively, good scheme. They're not way behind these teams. But if you don't do the things that are just absolutely fundamentally necessary, if you don't do that on a regular basis week to week, then, yeah, you're not on that level. We can talk all day long about, well, talent-wise, I can't believe that this guy ranked their backfield better than ours. Consider it all. None of it matters. That's why I those of you that get really caught up and in your feels when it comes to predictions and, oh my God, a Sports Illustrated guy called us 7 and said we're going to be 7-10. Well, you know what he's saying? They have talent, but they haven't proven anything. You got to prove it. So why wouldn't he put down 7-10? That's what's got to change this year. That's what's got to change this year.
Yeah, Chico. It hasn't all come together yet. And on the offensive side of the ball, I feel like it's easier to trust that you have the leadership coming out of the quarterback position. On the defensive side of the ball, yes, you have Anthony Walker. But to your point, if you're not the best playmaker on the field, on the defensive side of the ball, I don't think that it's going to carry as much because you want to see that best player assert his dominance on the field against the opponent, but also assert his leadership for the rest of his team.
Well, and that's where I think, a guy like Denzel Ward, first of all, the reality is, we talked about it with Anthony Walker. If you're going to be a leader, you got to be on the field. And Denzel Ward obviously is trying to stay healthy. It's not like, he takes some shots and he's had some unfortunate, injuries in that regard. But, they're talking about him and Greg Newsome, and you'll see some of them on the outside, some of them, playing the slot. Like Jim Schwartz isn't going to be. So that's good. I don't want teams. If you're predictable, offense, defense, whatever, if you're predictable, man, you're in big, big trouble. And the Browns at times, not just last year, but even in previous years, the 2021 season, they became very predictable, and it killed them. So, yeah, I agree with you that you've got to be on the field, but like Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome can be leaders. Juan Thornhill, we've heard great things about him. I'd like to hope that and think that your free safety is going to be able to make some plays, be a ball hawk back there. I said it last week that we really haven't had one of those in a long time. And good defenses, great defenses need to create turnovers.
Yeah, and you mentioned a guy like Thornhill, who I think it's easy to spot that leadership, right? Because he's very vocal, and he's very in terms of trying to set the mentality of this is not a losing culture anymore, and that sort of stuff. But then you look at an Amari Cooper, I think is kind of on the other end.
Great leader.
That's a guy who leads by example, right? He's quiet as can be, but he carries himself the right way. He works as hard as anyone, and he delivers on the field. I don't think it's an exact comparison, but that's I guess it seems visible with Cooper to an extent, but there's a lot that you don't see behind closed doors. I feel like I'd like it to be more visible with Miles. I'm nitpicking.
Or not even so much visible, just don't do the stuff that he's done. Which, okay, some might say I'm nitpicking, but if you're simply asked to go on a trip to the Hall of Fame, really, has it gotten to that point that you're that big that you can't attend a visit to the Hall of Fame with the rest of your team?
You should probably suck it up for your teammates.
Come on. Yeah, really suck it up. I'm sure they're not going to have – I'm sure it's going to be an old rickety-rackety bus ride, too, and they're not going to be fed.
Crying the whole way home.
Yeah, my gosh, I probably won't be fed, so pack a lunch, Miles. Give me a break. And, when it comes to, the driving stuff, that's stuff that, like, if you're Amari Cooper, you just kind of know, like, I can't do certain stuff. I won't do certain stuff. And, and then it's not so much even that happens, that he does that. Miles does that, say the driving thing. But then Kevin Stefanski, it's kind of like swept under the rug. Guys see that. Younger players definitely see that. And it's just, to me, it's recipe for disaster.
So how do you think Miles feels about playing in the Hall of Fame game? I mean, he might not even play, but, like, being present there, because he has to be there, right? You think that bugs him as much?
There. He better be there.
Or because he's not stepping foot in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, Joe Thomas is going in, and
yeah. You got to support your former teammate.
He'll be there. That whole thing was just stupid last year. Like, what? I'm not going. And then he didn't go. Like, they didn't push the issue. Well, little things like that can't happen. I'm sorry. And you say, like, well, it's not a big deal. Well, maybe on the surface it's not a big deal, but those things add up. And those things add up quicker when it happens with somebody to the level, to the ilk of Myles Garrett. Like it or not, that's what it is. Like, to much is given, much is expected. It's that simple.
It's a discombobulated decision.
Yes, Boom. All right, who you got for for Game 5? Is it over tonight in Denver? Go with the spread. We'll go. Tipico, I believe, has it at +9. Our buddies at Tipico. So Denver is laying 9 points.
I'm definitely taking Denver outright for sure, money line. Now, the 9 points do make it interesting, and I don't know that I want to take that. I feel like I could take Miami to cover that, because, I mean, this is the last gasp. Their backs are against the corner. This is the last punch that they could throw. I think it's going to be a hard one.
It is, and I just don't know, though, if, we talk about guys making shots, right? Like EK said. If Max Strus continues to shoot blanks like he is, and Gabe Vincent shoot blanks like he is, you say, well, Tyler Herro's coming. Tyler Herro hasn't played in how long? 8 weeks? I mean, and he's going to be in the high altitude. I mean, how long? What's his conditioning like? I don't know. I feel like Denver, they know it's on the precipice. That fan base, they are going to be jacked up. I think Denver wins, and they cover that 9.5.
Yeah, and they could very easily run away with it, right? I mean, like, I'm sure, obviously, I think they're going to be as motivated as ever, clearly, but these guys have just asserted their dominance over Miami all throughout the course of this series.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not expect Jokic to go out there and ball out tonight? How can you not expect Jamal Murray to get you, at the very least, on a bad game, 15-plus points? So the key to me is how clutch are those role players going to be when big shots come late in the game? Because they're going to have to take some, but Jokic will probably set them up perfectly. And, yeah, I anticipate a Denver win without a doubt.
All right, you heard it here from Michael Bohm. So write it down, mark it down, put it in pen, put it in Sharpie, for crying out loud. Take the Nuggets. All right,
Nugs, baby.
We're out of time for this Monday. Thanks to Mitch Lawrence for joining us. Coming up tomorrow, we are chasing, as they say in the business, Mary Kay Cabot, Cleveland.com. And Brett Boone joining you Wednesday later in the week, also chasing. We had him once before, Joe Thomas. So hopefully have some good Browns talk this week as well. But I'll be with you again tomorrow afternoon at 1. Don't forget, the Reflog Show is coming your way tonight at 9 o'clock. Until then, until tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I'm Mike Chico Bormann, and he's Michael Bohm. For all of us here at Big Play Sports, make it a great Monday night, everybody. See ya.